Welcome to the Bulldog broadcast on the Field of 68 Media Network. I'm your host, Dan Dickau. And first off, I want to say a big thank you to one of our sponsors, McGilvery Environmental. If you have any landscape needs in regards to your big projects, whether it be Western Montana, Northern Idaho, Eastern Washington, give Kip and his crew a call and they will take care of you. I've heard nothing but positive reviews from their work over the years. So big thanks to McGilvery Environmental. Big thanks to Shoot 360. Not just the location in Spokane, but there's 40 locations across the United States with more to come. So big thanks to them and look forward to getting into a little bit of previewing UCLA, previewing the first couple games in the WCC, as well as giving you my picks for how the league is going to end up this year. Well, let's get right to it. So Gonzaga finished off their pre-Christmas non-conference by a couple, I don't want to call them boring wins, but needed wins against Nichols and Bucknell right before Christmas. And I think a couple of the positives that you saw was Graham BK getting back to playing with force, putting foul pressure on the opponents, and finishing plays down on the inside. I think Gonzaga is at its best when he does that. And in return, it opens up the outside for guys to go ahead and have some more space to knock down three-point shots. But I thought he played well. Ryan Nembhard continues to play well, leads the country in assists per game as we record this. I thought Braden Huff was really good in the Nichols game. And so you're seeing lots of growth from him, but then you're seeing the typical up and down valleys of young players, and in particular young bigs. I think Caliph Battle, as great as he was to start, I think he's kind of hit a little bit of a rough patch in regards to teams are doing a good job of focusing in on him and making life difficult. Now, that being said, Gonzaga is going to need his firepower and scoring punch down the stretch, his ability to get hot from beyond the three-point line, ability to create shots in the half court when shot clock's winding down, as well as getting out in transition to finish, I think are some of the key places that he's really going to help. I think, again, Gonzaga got through that stretch 9-3. They're sitting in the top 14, 15, 16 range in the rankings before you head into this UCLA matchup. They're a little under the national radar. They come away with a big win against UCLA, possibly. You're going to probably see them creep back up to about that 10 mark. And then, as we've seen over the years, if you handle your business in the WCC, you're just going to gradually keep climbing. And I would not be surprised, even with maybe one or two hiccups in league, if there are the right hiccups in league, and that would be, say, at St. Mary's, or this year maybe being at San Francisco because of how good I think they are going to be. That's going to still be viewed as a quad one loss, quad two at worst. And so those aren't going to hurt you as much. So I think you're going to gradually continue to see Gonzaga climb up in the polls, especially if they come away with this non-conference opportunity against UCLA. But when you look at UCLA, ranked 22 in the AP, I think they're better than that. And I think that's going to statistically continue to show that out over the course of Big Ten play for them. And if Gonzaga can win, that's going to end up looking like a really good win at the end of the year. They were ranked pretty high in the preseason. They lost their second game of the year in a neutral site game in Las Vegas to New Mexico that really sent them tumbling in regards to the rankings. Took them a while to climb back up. And then they just had another loss to North Carolina in their most recent game where they really didn't look like themselves. You kind of take out game one against Idaho State where they win, albeit fairly close. Then you lose to New Mexico. They ran off 10 wins in a row, and some of those were good wins. It was a road win at Oregon. which is not an easy place to win at. It's a win against Arizona, and it's also another Big Ten win against UW. So, all being said, you're looking at a team that has put together a double-digit winning streak this early in the season. So they already kind of understand and know what the nucleus is that Mick Cronin wants to create to have a successful season. And when you talk about a Mick Cronin basketball team, you're always going to talk about a team that starts on the defensive end of the floor. Regardless of what the numbers say, and their numbers aren't as good as what they've been in years past, they're very good defensively. They're going to contain the basketball. They're going to be in the gaps. They're going to be physical, pushing cuts off their line. They're going to be, not allowing screens and screeners to either set the screen at the proper angle or with the proper pace. They're not going to let the cutter come off the screen with any type of force or pace and at the angle that they want. So Gonzaga's got to be prepared and expected that type of physical basketball game on that end of the floor. When you switch now and look at UCLA on the offensive end of the floor, they're not a very creative offensive team, and that's not a knock in any way, shape, or form against Mick Cronin. It's just the way his teams have always played. They've been very fundamentally sound. They don't turn the ball over. They like to play through the post. They will do some pick and roll actions, although I wouldn't say they're a heavy dose of pick and roll teams attacks. But this year, as compared to last year, where they did not make the NCAA tournament, their talent level is much, much better. They've got two returning guards that started a season ago in Dylan Andrews and Sebastian Mack. And then when you bring in some of the guys that they did in the transfer portal, it does one of two things. It either gets them to work harder and improve and be more productive, which is what I think they do, or you see players run from that challenge. And it's nice to see in this day and age when you bring in talent to your team, you don't run. You take that challenge and you work to get better. And I think in particular, that's what Sebastian Mack has done. And I think you can say the same for Dylan Andrews. When you look at the overall talent in the backcourt for UCLA, it's pretty good. We just mentioned those two. They played a ton of minutes last year. They gained a ton of experience. Now you're starting to see some of that experience tie into production, because with more talent on the floor, if you don't produce and produce efficiently, your minutes are going to get taken away. And no player wants to get minutes taken away. So they're finding that next level of learning to be able to allow them to impact the game positively in a way that Mick Cronin wants. Some of the other guys on the perimeter that have added to the talent level, when you look at freshman Trent Perry, he's shown some really good flashes this year that he's going to be a really good player. Dom Harris is a name that everybody that follows Gonzaga basketball probably remembers. Spent time at Gonzaga, came in with Suggs and Strother, battled injuries, redshirted, battled injuries, then battled playing time because guys, kind of got off to the right foot early in the season, and so he wasn't able to crack the rotation. But he was really good at LMU a season ago. He's been good in short spurts this year at UCLA, just hasn't had a lot of extended opportunities yet. But, he is talented and he can shoot the ball well from deep, that's for sure. The maybe biggest transfer for UCLA would be on the wing, and that's Kobe Johnson, transfer from USC to UCLA. And his ability to impact the game defensively, I think, is unique at this level. It'll be interesting to see who they match him up with in this Gonzaga game. Do they put him on a guy like Caleb Battle to limit his opportunities, because he is a big wing at about 6'7", 6'8"? Maybe they put him on point guard Ryan Nembhard, because we've already seen that at times length can bother smaller guards, which Ryan Nembhard is a little bit of a smaller guard. So that will be an interesting one to look at for sure, where that matchup goes. Then in the front court, I think probably the two biggest additions for UCLA, and I know I talked Kobe Johnson being an important one, but Tyler Bilodeau from Oregon State transferred down to Westwood One. He's been special. I mean, he's leading them in scoring right now. Mick Cronin absolutely loves the way he competes. He loves his skill set. He gives them freedom. pick and pop threes. They throw him the ball, not on necessarily dead block, but a step off the block so he can reverse pivot face and use a little bit of his speed and his quickness, but also his ability and understanding to play angles to get by guys in that 8 to 12 foot range away from the basket. So he's a very good player. He's really good on the glass. Defensively, he's tough. He's hard nosed, doesn't block a lot of shots, but he seems to always be in the right position. This is a unique one because he's a Washington kid. So I know he wanted to come to Gonzaga. He might have even wanted to come in the transfer portal if there was no player by the name of Graham Ike at Gonzaga because he's from just down the road and Tri-Cities played at Kamiakin, but a very good player. And then the other one is Eric Daly Jr., very tough, physical, athletic, big on the interior that also transferred in. So your two leading scorers for UCLA are Bilodeau and Eric Daly Jr., and then you've got a lot of perimeter-oriented players that average between about 7 and 11 points a game. So really balanced attack from UCLA. But when you look at this, I think the most important thing is going to be the battle on the glass between Gonzaga and UCLA. And the reason I say this is if Gonzaga doesn't allow UCLA to get on that offensive glass and get second chance putbacks, they can now push that pace. And they can play at the pace that they want because Gonzaga wants this game in the 80s. UCLA wants it in the mid-60s. Now, I know UCLA averages more than 65 points per game, which is mid-60s. But when you look at these two teams, when they match up together, UCLA wants to slow it down. Gonzaga wants to push the pace. So one of the things to look for is the ability to keep UCLA off the glass so Gonzaga can run. I think the other thing to look for is I don't think we're going to have to worry about any of the junk defenses that might pop up occasionally now since that Kentucky 1-3-1 zone kind of put a stop sign on Gonzaga for a little bit. I think the reason we don't have to worry about this is 99.9% of UCLA possessions defensively are going to be man-to-man. I can't remember in any of the games that I broadcast of Mick Cronin coached teams going back to days at Cincinnati that I remember his own possession. And so you've got to think that one of the other things is can the matchup defensively for UCLA player who is guarding Ryan Emart, can they speed him up in a way to where he turns it over or he gets Gonzaga's offense a little bit out of tune. So that'll be something to keep an eye on as well. At the end of the day, I think this is going to be a really fun basketball game. It's the first college basketball game ever played in the Intuit Dome, which I have not been there yet, but I've heard it's phenomenal. It's the Clippers' new arena in Inglewood, just right down the road from the old Great Western Forum, where the Lakers played during the Showtime days. But supposed to be the best basketball arena that has been built to date. So it'll be interesting to watch it on TV and see what the response is like. So it should be a great atmosphere.
The world's leading immersive basketball training experience that combines in-person skill development with digital gamification and virtual competition. At Shoot 360, you will train with our coaches, measure your skills with our proprietary technology, and track your progress on the Shoot 360 mobile app. Shoot 360 Spokane. Unlock your game.
After Gonzaga gets through that, it turns quickly into WCC play. So Gonzaga will stay down there. That UCLA game is on the 28th. They go right into WCC play. So Gonzaga will have 3 WCC games in the first true week of the season. And so you're looking at Monday, December 30th, Pepperdine, January 2nd, back in Spokane at the Spokane Arena against University of Portland. Excuse me. And then Saturday, they got to head back to LA again to play at Loyola Marymount on January 4th. But when you look at these couple teams, Pepperdine in particular is interesting because it's a new coach. Ed Schilling took over for Lorenzo Romar, who is now actually an assistant at Loyola Marymount. But Ed Schilling was at Grand Canyon with Bryce Drew the last few years. And they're a team that, they're I guess you could say they're struggling a little bit with their record. They're sitting at 6-7, but they've got a big time scorer leading the conference in scoring, actually at over 19 a game, in Stefan Todorovic, and a really good point guard who transferred from Pacific in Mo Odom, 12 points, 7 assists a game. So, so when you look at that 6-7 record, you got two guys that are really standing out. It's still early in Ed Schilling's time where he's trying to implement exactly what he wants done. And so if they can get a good showing early in league, continue to get guys to buy in, it could kind of snowball in the right direction for Pepperdine, where as opposed to the last couple of years, they've gotten off to a poor start in league. They've had some injuries, and it's snowballed in the opposite direction for Pepperdine. Then they come back, they play Portland at the Spokane Arena in the Community Cancer Fund Classic. If you remember that game last year that was in league, I believe it was against Pepperdine last year during the season. Sellout crowd at Spokane Arena, was a absolutely unbelievable environment where instead of, you get your great 6,000 fans at McCarthy, students aren't back yet, might as well have it, open tons of tickets up to the public, get another sellout, give people a chance to see Gonzaga in person. And that's exactly what they're doing. So that should be an opportunity, I would think, for Gonzaga to move to 2-0 in league before they head back down to LA and play Loyola Marymount, where Loyola Marymount's sitting at 8-4, and they've won 4 of their last 5. So after a little bit of a rocky start, they're starting to turn the corner, are the Lions. But when you look at this schedule, 4 games in 8 days, right after Christmas break, I think it's a really good chance and a good opportunity. 4 games in 9 days. It's a really good chance and a really good opportunity for the rhythm to get back going, because you kind of have those kind of weird, clunky December where it's a game on a Saturday, a whole week off, game on another Saturday, 2 quick ones after finals, and then boom, you're gone, and you head home for a couple days for Christmas break. So it'll be a really good chance to see how this team's gelling when you're leading up in the league. But wanted to give you my WCC predictions for this season in a short capsule preview of each team in the league. So I don't think it's going to be a big surprise. Gonzaga, to me, is going to win the league. When you look at just the talent that they have, what they've done in the non-conference, what they could have done in the non-conference, I think it's still Gonzaga's league to win. And coming in second, I've got St. Mary's. 2 big transfers: Josh Jefferson to Iowa State, Aiden Mahaney to UConn. Made you think that, hey, maybe St. Mary's is going to take a step back. Well, that hasn't been the case at all, as they sit right now at 10-2 as well. 9-3. But when you look at it, Augustus Marshallonis has the ball in his hands even more now. Paulinus Maraska, I believe I'm saying it correctly. The transfer has been great, averaging about 14 points, 9 rebounds. And the fact that Mitchell Saxon is back, you pair those two on the interior with their size, their physicality, their strength, their rebounding, their shot blocking, has been really difficult for a lot of opponents to match up with. Just for a little bit of a comparison's sake, Gonzaga lost in the exhibition game to USC in Palm Springs. Well, St. Mary's beat USC 71-36. 71-36. I had to repeat myself twice. I had to look at it 3 or 4 times when I was kind of going back and kind of reviewing some stuff for the league. But that was a clear standout victory for St. Mary's. Their only losses, when you look at them, Utah State still undefeated as they head into Mountain West play. Arizona State, who we all, if you're a Gonzaga fan, you remember gave Gonzaga a solid game here in Spokane. And then they lost to Boise State, which has been in the NCAA tournament the last 3 years. So their 3 losses, you never want to call it a loss, good loss, but against good teams this season. So they're sitting at 10-3. USF is going to be my pick for third. They are sitting at 10-3 as well. A good win for them is Boise State. When you look at their roster, Malik Thomas has continued to elevate his game, showed flashes last year, but he's averaging over 18 a game now. He's a big wing who can shoot it from three. They do a lot of unique things where they'll flip him into the post, play out of him. They'll do split actions, and he can either go to work and score on the block or find guys because he's a willing passer. Marcus Williams continues to play well, and then maybe the best freshman in the league, Tyrone Riley the fourth, has been really good for Chris Gerlifson and staff. My pick for fourth in the league, Washington State. First-year coach David Riley coming south from Cheney in Eastern Washington. Gotten off to a really good start. They're sitting at 10-3, but their best player, a player who's slowly started to show up on NBA draft boards, Cedric Coward. After playing the first 5 or 6 games, he's going to miss the rest of the season. But they've got a lot of firepower to score the basketball, in particular from the perimeter when you have guys like Nate Calnese, who really couldn't get a lot of time at UW last year. Isaiah Watts goes from freshman year, seventh man-ish, to now he's a true sixth man. He should be a starter on most teams, but they like his offensive firepower, his shooting ability off the bench, so he's been really good. And then Lawan Watts, no relation between those two, has been really good for their interior presence. For fifth, I've got Oregon State. Wayne Tinkle had the Beavers knocking on the doorstep of a Final Four a few years ago. They took a big time U-turn by not getting the right guys in the portal. They've reversed course, and they're putting together a heck of a year. Michael Ratai stayed, didn't enter his name in the portal. Stayed, has really improved. He's averaging about 15 and 9 this season. And then they got a good one in the portal in point guard DeMarco Minor. When you look at his numbers, they don't necessarily, no particular number jumps out at you, but 10 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals a game. That's production. That's impacting the game in multiple ways. Sixth place team I have is Santa Clara. They got off to a really rough start, but they've righted the ship. They've won their last 5, and now they're sitting at 8-5. They've got Adama Ballback, who flirted with the NBA draft. Elijah Mahi has really shown some flashes as a JUCO transfer in regards to at least shooting it from deep. And they are always tough. They're always big. They're always physical. You got guys like Ensminger back. Stewart is back after spending some time back in LSU. They've just Tilly on the interior. They've got a lot of size as well as experience, so they're going to be a tough out this year in the WCC. My pick for seventh, LMU. We touched a little bit on Gonzaga opening the season, having one of their first games of the first weekend down at LMU. But when you look at it, LMU's sitting at 8-4. Will Johnston leads them in scoring. Caleb Stone Carrawell about 13 a game as well. But nothing necessarily jumps out at you when you look at their stats and their numbers. In regards to, have they played a difficult schedule? Not necessarily. Have they been extremely efficient in one area of the game? Not necessarily. I just don't think they put it all together until recently, because when you look at in their last little stretch, they beat a really good Nevada team. Nevada was undefeated before they lost to LMU. And so that, I'm sure, is propelling them in the right direction. My pick for eighth in the league this year, first-year coach Dave Smart with the Pacific Tigers is giving it his first go as a head coach in the States. Everybody knows the name Coach K in the U.S. In Canada, in regards to basketball circles, everybody knows the name Dave Smart. It's insane when you look at the national titles that he has been a part of at the college level for Canada. It's John Wooden-esque. I don't have the numbers directly in front of me, but I think it's something like 18 to 22, somewhere in their national titles. Just an unbelievable coach. Spent some time last year as an assistant at Texas Tech. Has his first go as a head coach at the state. So it'll be interesting to see how they play. But they've got a unique roster in that there's a lot of Canadians on that roster. But they're led in scoring by a guy by the name of Elias Ralph. 17 points, 8 rebounds, almost a block and a half a game. And then point guard, a transfer from Texas Tech, Lamar Washington. Numbers didn't pop out at you at Texas Tech, but he's done a nice job of transitioning his game to be an elite guard at Pacific. My pick for number 9, Portland Pilots. They led in scoring by Austin Rapp, Fukasan Masic, second in scoring, but those are the only 2 players they have averaging double figures this season. So they played a lot of guys. Those 2 are the only guys on the roster that have been fairly consistent in regards to production. So the Pilots continue to struggle as they sit at 5-8. And after such a promising start a season ago for the Toreros of USD and Steve Lavin, I'm going to have them predicted at 10th in the WCC this year. They're struggling at 3-9. They've lost their last 5. Things aren't going to get much easier because they don't have a lot of scoring punch. One player for the Toreros is averaging in double figures, and that's KJ Bradley, who averages a little over 15 a game. He's their point guard, doesn't shoot it from deep at a very efficient clip, but he's tasked and he's handled and he's asked to do so many things on the court. So things are difficult down in San Diego, I'm sure, right now as they try to get themselves off on the right foot to begin WCC play. But there you have it. There's my prediction for the order of finish in the WCC. My player of the year prediction, it's going to be Ryan Nemhart of Gonzaga. I think there's plenty of good players in the league, but if Gonzaga continues to play the way that they have played throughout the year, and Nemhart leads the league in assists, or not just the league, but the country in assists. He averages mid double figures for points. He gets Graham Ike involved. He keeps Caliph Battle, Nolan Hickman, where they're getting open shots. I don't see there's any way that you can go in another direction than Ryan Nemhart for player of the year in the league. My freshman of the year is going to be Tyrone Riley IV at USF. And then in regards to coach of the year, this is always the most difficult one to predict, because is there injuries or there roster defections midseason, or there is bringing in transfers, and it takes a while to get them up to speed. So many variables, but Coach Few, Randy Bennett have kind of owned this award over the last 20 years or so. So I'm going to plead the 5th on WCC Coach of the Year. So thanks again for listening. We will be back and we'll start bringing on some guests in the very near future. Just kind of had to get through this Christmas break stretch. Wanted to preview all 4 games to a certain extent, but most importantly, that UCLA game December 28th at the Intuit Dome Arena, the first ever college basketball game in this new arena that was built specifically for basketball, the home of the NBA's Los Angeles Clippers. Should be a great game. But thanks for listening. This has been Dan Dickau on the Bulldog Broadcast for the Field of 68 Media Network.